Welcome to Crossroads. The Chinese regime's monopoly over rare earth minerals could soon be broken. Now look, the Chinese Communist Party has been expanding government control over its rare earth mineral industry, including by bringing the whole industry under the control of the CCP. It's all under state control now. But as the CCP has tried restricting the ability of the materials to other countries, notably it's become the new focus of a global trade war. And now, in the first of its kind collaboration, the United States and Qatar are looking to upset the CCP's market dominance on these rare earth minerals. Qatar has invested in the US-backed initiative that looks to break the CCP's monopoly on these minerals. Financial Times says this. They say Qatar's sovereign wealth fund has agreed to invest $180 million in TechMet, a Dublin-based mining investment vehicle backed by the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, which is, of course, the United States' development bank. And it's the investment by the Qatar Investment Authority is a significant movement in the geopolitical tussle between the United States and China for control over supplies of rare earths, lithium and cobalt used to make electric cars. Now, it notes that the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden has escalated efforts to wrest dominance from China over critical minerals and made it one of its biggest strategic objectives in the switch to renewable power. And as a plank of those efforts has been attempting to persuade Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates to use their financial muscle to invest in U.S. initiatives to extract and process critical minerals for industrial use, which notably for these countries would be a big deal because remember, a lot of their economy is oil. And if cars go from using gas to using electric, that's going to really cut into their finances. And so by doing this, the U.S. is giving them the opportunity to develop the materials used in this new form of energy for vehicles as, again, they try to move away from more conventional ones. And so for them, of course, this is like maintaining their wealth dominance within that industry, essentially. But they note the wealthy Gulf states are hoping to become big players in the critical minerals market, using their neutrality in the geopolitical standoff between the United States and China to their advantage. Now, moves to break the CCP control over rare earth minerals is not just limited to Qatar either, although that's a big focus right now because that whole region is believed to be a massive kind of store of these types of minerals. And the process of mining them can be pretty environmentally damaging in areas with a lot of water, for example, or other like crops and so on. And so for this area, it is kind of like one of the targeted industries that the United States is going after because they have the ability to mine these in large scale. Now, this is a U.S.-led initiative as well that has seen several pushes in several other countries. For example, you have Brazil, backed by Western investment and expertise, opening up for the first of several planned mines set to tap into its rare earth elements industry in June of this year. And there's actually a lot of other countries as well. The Epoch Times noted that coupled with expanded investment and cooperation in rare earth elements, exploration and development by countries such as Australia, the United States, Japan, Vietnam, and others, China observers say the Chinese Communist regime is losing its leverage in geopolitics and its competition in the West. Because remember, one of the ways the CCP tries to influence the politics in different countries is by saying, hey, do business with us or you're cut off. They have almost like the power of sanctions, but it's not through, again, the Chinese yuan or currency. It's through market access and access to materials that you need to manufacture certain products. The CCP uses that basically as its negotiating arm, saying, hey, do business with us, agree to our political agendas, or you're cut off, as they've done to many countries, by the way. What happens now, though, is if the U.S. breaks away from reliance on China for key materials that it can't find elsewhere, then the CCP loses that type of control. The only thing it then controls are surface industries, which are very easily moved to other countries, which they can manufacture things cheaper and with, let's say, less government pressure because the CCP rules with an iron fist. What's important is that this trend is actually happening right now. Countries are now pushing back against the CCP. And because the CCP, again, as a way of kind of using an alternate way of sanctioning countries, right? They're not sanctioning using banks or so on. They're sanctioning essentially by cutting off access to key materials. that has forced countries to look for alternative sources of these materials, especially not even the ones that have been cut off from, but with the anticipation that they could be cut off. And so this trend is already happening. In fact, this article says that in March, the Australian government announced an investment of 840 million Australian dollars, which is about 560 million US dollars, in the first combined rare earth elements mine refinery run by Arufa Rare Earths in northern Australia. And this is important too because Australia, one of their biggest industries is mining. A lot of that does go to China, especially with copper and so on. But again, Australia, where people tend to live in the coastal areas and a lot of the more central desert areas are not as occupied, this is one of their big industries. If they get into rare earths, this is big for them. Vietnam as well. This notes that Vietnam is planned to restart its biggest rare earth mine by the end of 2024 in cooperation with Western companies, such as Australia's Blackstone Minerals Ltd, to counter China's dominance in the sector. And this is important on a strategic level as well because Vietnam, although it's in kind of the CCP's orbit, they've been pushing back against the CCP really strongly. They will not really align with the United States, given the history of the Vietnam War and the communist regime there, but they will work with some other countries in the region. This is important because, remember, Japan is trying to work with the Philippines, they're working with Taiwan. If Australia then begins working with Vietnam, and of course both Japan and Australia are part of the Quad Alliance alongside the United States and India, this is a big deal for security in that region and for business ties in that region. And remember, alongside business ties, you tend to have political ties. Now, also as well, in March of 2023, it says, Sojitz, a Japanese company, along with the Japan Organization for Metals and Energy Security, announced an investment of 200 million Australian dollars in Australia's Linus rare earths to reduce its dependence on China. And remember, Australia, one of their biggest industries is mining. It's what they do best. And so they're playing that role within that region of helping other countries get involved in the rare earth mining kind of industry right now. But it's actually not just that region. In Latin America, it says Brazil's first rare earth element mine, Serra Verde, has begun production this year, joining the race of the West's efforts to diversify the supply chain of the strategically important source. When they say diversify, they mean creating other options other than China. So it's kind of a pointed thing at the CCP, but they're saying that they need to have other sources in competition. And by investing in it, especially as they get cut off from the Chinese rare earth mineral market, this is creating new industries and, of course, new partnerships. And also there was a major discovery in Norway. So again, you have the Asia-Pacific region, you have Latin America, then you have Europe. Oil Price notes this. They note that 2 new developments in Europe now suggest that the West has a fighting chance to secure critical metals for the future. A major discovery in Norway and a potentially game-changing acquisition in Greenland. It notes that in mid-June, Norwegian mining company Rare Earths Norway unveiled one of the largest deposits of rare earth elements in Europe in the Fen carbonatite complex in the country's south. It says that discovery followed a vote in Norwegian parliament that paved the way for offshore deep-sea mining of rare minerals in the country's remote northern waters, Fortune magazine reported, making this the first country in Europe to allow such seabed mining activities. They note as well at the same time, Critical Metals Corp announced an acquisition deal for what it believes is the largest critical metals deposit in the world in Greenland. It notes that on June 10th, Critical Metals Corp signed an agreement to acquire a controlling interest in Greenland's Tonbreeze project, which it says is the largest rare earth deposit in the world. Now, that's actually important as well, not just on a business level, but on a security level. Because remember, I talked about Australia, of course, breaking away from reliance on the CCP. Australia, of course, being one of the major countries involved with mining. And them now, of course, doing mining operations with Japan, mining operations with Vietnam. These countries in Europe, right, Greenland, Norway, well, technically not Greenland, these countries also play roles within the Arctic. These are Arctic power countries. And if they're doing operations like this, of course, not only do you have to, let's say, start the business. You have to secure the business. And so if Norway, for example, begins rare earth exploration, maybe in the waters of that area, that also means that any operations of China or Russia that challenge the security of that region are then threats to the industry, so they have to protect them. This is important because the United States, NATO, Canada, they're looking at operations now to secure the Arctic. And so given this situation, what this means is that you not only have the breaking away from dependence on China, and notably, the breaking of reliance on an industry the CCP has used historically as a way to control and influence other countries, saying, hey, don't talk about this or we'll cut you off. Breaking that dependence, breaking that industrial dependence notably, this allows them to, of course, be less reliant on China. It makes them so that China can't pressure them as much. And notably, it also creates kind of alliances with different countries through these business agreements that will help them establish alternative economies, but also better diplomatic relationships. And of course, remember, Middle East as well playing this role alongside the United States. This is breaking the reliance on China and breaking the CCP's monopoly over this industry. Now, interestingly, a large focus could also fall onto Central Asia. Voice of America says this. They say U.S. officials hoping to break China's near monopoly on the production of rare earth elements needed for many cutting-edge technologies should engage the governments of Central Asia to develop high concentrations of rare earth minerals found in the region, says a new report. It says the study by the U.S.-based International Tax and Investment Center warns that a failure to act could leave China with a decisive advantage in the sector, which is crucial to green energy, many new weapon systems, and other advanced technologies. The note, for example, oil-rich Kazakhstan, the region's economic giant, holds the world's largest chromium reserve and the second largest stock of uranium, while also possessing other critical elements. And Kazakhstan, although it may not get much attention in the U.S. and headlines normally, is actually extremely important strategically because the CCP heavily targets Kazakhstan and they regard that as one of the kind of gateways to the West. Kazakhstan is like one of the main areas they need to build things through to, of course, establish trade routes into Pakistan and other countries. They're a crucial country for the Chinese Communist Party reaching into Europe. What's also key with these countries is that the CCP has been looking to control them with its Belt and Road Initiative. Many Middle Asian countries, many Middle Eastern countries are also part of the CCP's plan to dominate Eurasia. The CCP, they're making business deals with these countries, they're doing investment in these countries, but a lot of that is debt traps. They, for example, have interest rates that are not realistic in terms of being able to pay them off. When the countries inevitably default on that, the Chinese Communist Party then gains control over the things it built. And so it begins controlling the major industries and the major, kind of infrastructure within these countries. And by doing that, they begin controlling the economy of these countries. The CCP, by dominating the economies, then influences the politics, and that's how they gain control over these countries. By establishing alternative investment, notably that is in partnership, not with an idea to dominate them, but instead to let them have their own businesses with some foreign investment tied in with it. This is what the U.S. is doing notably to not only establish new sources of materials to break the CCP's monopolies, but also to empower these countries and also to bring them more into the free world. So this plays a few different roles at the same time. Working with these countries on new industries would be good for them and for the free world, opposing the CCP's attempts to dominate them. And at the same time as well, the CCP is not giving up its control. The Chinese Communist Party is trying to defend its monopoly on rare earths by launching cyber attacks on its competitors and trying to drain the funds from their investors. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low-price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. The Chinese Communist Party currently has a monopoly over much of the world's rare earth minerals, but this could soon be broken. The CCP, they're not giving up their control though, and the Chinese Communist Party is trying to defend its monopoly because they don't want to lose it on these rare earths by launching cyber attacks on its competitors and try to drain their funds from investors. ABC Australia says this: an Australian company that runs a strategically crucial heavy rare earth project has been revealed to have been targeted in a suspected cyber attack as Treasurer Jim Chalmers ordered Chinese investors to be removed. On Monday, Mr. Chalmers, again in Australia, instructed Yuxiao Fund and 4 other international companies linked to China to divest their shares in Northern Minerals, which operates the Browns Range mine in Western Australia's Kimberley region. This is important because, again, as I've discussed, Australia, one of its biggest industries is mining. The Chinese Communist Party has tried to dominate Australia by dominating one of the key economic industries they have, mining. And so by forcing the CCP to divest, they're breaking their dependence on China and breaking the influence China has not only within the country's GDP industries, but also through extension of that, using these companies to try to influence the politics and influence the society. And so this is Australia essentially breaking from a good part of the control the CCP has over their country. The Chinese Communist Party, they do stuff like this in a lot of countries. They look at what are the main export industries. In New Zealand, it might be like dairy products, for example. They buy up those industries with investment by, creating monopolies and then putting the competition out of business and so on. And then by controlling the GDP products, then begin to influence the politics of the country. Australia breaking from that is Australia not only breaking the CCP's control over the industry, but also the influence they have in the country itself. Now, at the same time, though, the CCP's moves to dominate the industry, along with several other key areas, these are having the opposite effect, as you might note. The CCP is suffering from overproduction, it has too much. Not only that, but overproduction in many areas causing prices to fall. Nikkei Asia also reported into July this year. International prices of rare earth elements have plunged 20% over the past year as overproduction in China has caused a supply glut. Seeking to tighten its grip on the industry, China in June put out a list of regulations to protect supplies of these economically important metals. And it's the regulations issued by the State Council and taking effect on October 1st say rare earth resources belong to the state. But despite Beijing's attempts to tighten controls on the industry, the market has remained in the doldrums. Neodymium was priced 23% lower this July than late July 2023, according to Argus Media. Another metal, dysprosium, was down 24%. And notes that this is all part of a downward trend. The Chinese Communist Party also, again starting last year, had began expanding its control over the entire industry. Nikkei Asia said in 2023, China's rare earth resources belong to the state. The government said in a new regulation that would take effect on October 1st, again last year. And the CCP said, quote, no organization or individual may encroach upon or destroy rare earth resources. And it also said that its aim was to ensure national resource security and industrial security. Nikkei Asia says the explicit statement of state ownership had not been included in a draft of the regulations but was added to the final version. And it says the rule marks China's latest move to ring-fence its trove of industrial important metals in response to U.S. efforts to restrict Chinese access to advanced chip technology. They say as well that underground resources in China already belong to the state, if you mine, for example. But illegal mining and smelting of some rare earth elements has gone on in the private sector. The new regulation clarifies the state's policy of tighter controls. Nobody other than the state can do it. And look, with this also, the CCP started expanding its controls over how other countries can buy the materials. And notably, this is not just, again, control over the industry and control of mining, it's control of the exports. And this also started last year. Telegraph UK said in 2023, China has announced plans to halt export of rare earth material technology critical to the world's switch to greener energy. They say Beijing has listed refining technology to a list of items that cannot be transferred from China, Bloomberg reported at the time. It says the move comes days after MPs, members of parliament, warned the country, CCP, would weaponize its advantage in the minerals. Now, it says that last week, at the time again last year, Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee warned that Britain's net zero drive has been left dangerously exposed to a reliance on Beijing for supplies of crucial materials. The committee said in its report in the early 2000s that China began to weaponize critical minerals exports, restricting access for political leverage. Again, the CCP uses access as a tool for politics, for political leverage over other countries. They state that in 2020, China's Ministry of Commerce stopped approving the export licenses for graphite products to Sweden. The material is central to lithium battery making, and no formal reason has been given. Look, also, the CCP's efforts to control the industry continued this year as well. It wasn't just last year. They've been expanding state control, and they've essentially brought the whole industry now under the control of the CCP. Bloomberg said in June, just recently, China tightened the management of its rare earth industry with the approval of the first comprehensive regulation governing the mining, metal smelting, and circulation of the mineral. And it's that rare earths belong to the country and no organization or individual are allowed to claim them, the State Council said in a statement on its website. The state will take charge of protective mining of the resource, it said, and the new rule is set to take effect on October 1st, coming up soon. It notes as well, government agencies in China will have control over the total amount of rare earth mining and smelting and will establish a product traceability system, it added. The regulation also stated penalties for illegal activities involving the mineral's output. In this context, it's now being predicted that the CCP's monopoly over rare earths and its manipulation of that market could make it a new battleground in the expanding trade war. I'll be talking about this, though, only on Epoch TV. So if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, there's a link in the description below. Click on that. You'll get access to the rest of this episode and also our whole library of shows and our hard-hitting documentaries on issues that really matter, like the Chinese Communist Party's 100-year plan to defeat the United States. The CCP is one of the biggest threats to America. They're using things like propaganda, video games, entertainment, movies, culture, to subvert and influence the next generation. This unrestricted war against our country is one of the scariest but least understood issues of our time because it's not tangible. It's all being done through soft power and ideological subversion. I spent over a decade investigating the CCP's subversion, and it's such an important issue that I made a documentary called The Final War, which exposes this 100-year plot of the CCP to try to take down America. If you'd like to find out more about what the CCP is plotting against America, watch The Final War. You can find the link in the description below, and I'll show you all the trailer before you go exclusively to epochtv.com for the rest of this episode. I'll see you there.
The greatest threat facing the United States is the CCP.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years, but what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
With Chairman Mao, with the Prime Minister, our talks have been characterized by frankness.
The Clinton administration said, oh, don't worry about it. This will be a poison pill for China.
China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group.
We are giving of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.